So, hi everyone. My name is Carolina Nugnes, and I will be the guest speaker for your class today. I will be introducing you to the topic of sustainable fashion and show you how it can really have a positive impact on the environment, as well as it can be beneficial for the social environment overall. So I have experience working in sustainable fashion as an ESG manager, and I was working for a really small New York City brand whose focus is to reduce waste while maximizing profits. I believe that this industry is, with a focus on sustainability, is growing exponentially, and it will require young and innovative minds. Unfortunately, I will not be able to give the talk on live due to some sudden work travel. So, in case you have any questions, the professor has my email address, and you can write to me anytime, and I'll be glad to help. So let's start with the presentation. Okay, so first of all, I will introduce you to what sustainable fashion is. So sustainable fashion is also known as eco-fashion and is a design and manufacturing approach that incorporates environmentally friendly and ethical practices throughout the entire product life cycle. So from sourcing of the materials to the production, the distribution, and the end of life disposal. It aims to minimize the negative impacts of the fashion industry on the environment and the society. And it also promotes responsible consumer choices. So the key principles of sustainable fashion are sustainable materials such as organic cotton, hemp, tencel, and also the research of finding new sustainable materials and testing them ethically, of course, which brings me to the ethical labor practice point, which is, regarding the labor market. So ensuring fair wages, safe working conditions for people throughout the entire supply chain, reducing the waste. So it really emphasizes the minimal waste in the design and the production processes. It includes zero waste pattern making and recycling the fabrics to the scraps, especially. That's how they called. Slow fashion, so it's encouraging the quality over the quantity. So it really encourages people to buy less, but to keep the product for longer time. Slow fashion, well, that's what I've just mentioned, and transparency and accountability, which basically entails brands to be really committed to sustainable fashion and to be transparent about their practices, and to include really step-by-step to like showing how their products are being made, and also consumer education. This is the last key component of sustainable fashion, which entails just raising awareness among consumers about the social and the environmental implication of their fashion choices. And it really encourages a more responsible consumption choice. So just by saying this, you can understand how sustainable fashion is really important, to be more responsible and ecologically sustainable. So why is, why it is important? It is vital also because it addresses the harmful environmental and social impacts of the traditional fashion industry, and it is also, promoting a more responsible and ethical approach to clothing production and consumption. Okay, so Second, I will give you a really brief presentation overview. I will be going through, the concept of fast fashion versus sustainable fashion. I will be delving into the environmental impacts that fast fashion has. And also, I will be guiding you through the sustainable fashion principles and how basically companies are nowadays operating within this industry. What is the consumer's role within all of this? And I will end with some statistics for you to basically show you how important it is and how a lot of companies are really trying to make sustainable choices and to really encourage consumer choices as well to be sustainable. Okay, so let's start. Fast fashion. So the term is used to describe a really rapid production and distribution of low-cost, trendy clothing and accessories that are designed to really quickly respond to yes, the latest fashion trends, but also the demand, which, I think it's also a societal component to this, where, nowadays consumption is just, bulimic in a certain way. So it really goes to target that market and those people. So fast fashion brands are known for their ability to produce garments very quickly and to make them available to consumers at lower prices and also in a very fast way. So I know that some fast fashion companies actually get new seasons weekly now. So that is very astonishing as a data point. But so what are the key problems with fast fashion? First of all, environmental impact. Fast fashion is notorious for, the heavy environmental footprint. So the quick turnover of styles leads to overproduction, excessive resource consumption, and very high levels of waste. So water pollution is critical, and extensive use energy. And the generation of textile waste, which is associated with microplastics in oceans, and so second point, the second key problem I would say is exploitative labor practices. So many fast fashion brands outsource their production to countries that have very low labor costs, and so we often hear about the poor working conditions, the low wages, child labor, and exploitative labor practices are a significant ethical concern in the fast fashion industry, and that has to be tackled. Then I would say another key problem is quality and durability, because fast fashion really prioritizes cost cutting, which results in garments that are often of very low quality, and these clothes tend to wear out, and this encourages people to buy more. And it basically promotes a really big throwaway culture where clothing is discarded after a few wears. Then another key problem is lack of transparency. So these companies often are not traceable. Their operations are not traceable, so we don't know where the material is coming from, and also we are not able to understand the true social costs of the products the consumers purchase. And another interesting point is cultural appropriation. So fast fashion brands are, often criticized for appropriating designs and styles from other cultures without, a proper credit of really understanding the piece they're producing. And, this also leads to cultural insensitivity and disrespect. And finally, there's overconsumption. because the fast fashion model encourages consumers to constantly purchase new clothing items, as I've mentioned, which leads to overconsumption and excessive consumer debt. We are now coming to our topic, which is, the alternative to all these very big problems is sustainable fashion. So sustainable fashion movement has emerged as a more responsible and ethical alternative because it focuses on really reducing its environmental and social impact. And at the same time, it's promoting long-lasting quality clothing. So by shifting the fashion industry toward a more sustainable practice, it basically offers a more ethical, environmentally friendly alternative to the fast fashion model. Okay, so now I will guide you through the environmental impacts. So the fashion industry has a significant environmental impact, contributing to pollution, to waste, and to resource depletion. Here are, some key statistics that you can consider and really reflect on. For instance, the fashion industry is the second largest consumer and polluter of water globally. This is according to UN Environment, and it is responsible for, around 20% of industrial water pollution. Second is microplastic pollution. So there are synthetic fibers that are really common, of common use in fashion, which release microplastic particles, into the environment when they're washed. And an estimated 35% of microplastics in the ocean come from textiles. So third point is greenhouse gas emissions. So the fashion industry is responsible for around 8 to 10% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, which is a big number. And then there is, waste generation. So the fashion industry generates approximately 92 million tons of textile waste annually. And in the end, for cotton production, which is, concerning material use, conventional cotton farming uses a really significant amount of water and pesticides, and it can take, over 20,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of cotton, which is basically, to give you an idea, enough for like one pair of t-shirts and a pair of jeans. And finally, we have land use. So the fashion industry is responsible for, the conversion of ecosystems into agricultural and industrial land, which leads to, deforestation and habitat destruction. Okay, so, overall, I think these statistics highlight the severe environmental impact of the fashion industry, including, contribution to water pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, waste generation, as well as deforestation. And sustainable practices such as, eco-friendly materials, reducing water consumption and energy are really the challenges that can mitigate and reduce the industry environmental footprint. So, okay. Next is I'll be talking about the sustainable fashion principles. So first of all, there is the reduce, reuse, recycle principle, which is regarding reducing waste and reducing overconsumption. So it really focuses on these 2 points. So reducing waste is really a fundamental principle of sustainable fashion, because it involves designing products and production processes to to generate minimal waste. And this can be achieved through, responsible design, pattern making, and cutting techniques that can really reduce the fabric use. And this fabric that is not being employed for production can be then reused in, the following season. Reducing overconsumption is basically concerning encouraging consumers to buy fewer but high quality items instead of I would say indulging in a constant cycle of buying very cheap and disposable clothing. And the second point is to reuse. So it really regards the extended lifespan. So reuses, like the reuse emphasizes the idea of really keeping clothing items in circulation for a longer time. And this brings to the second point, which is second-hand market. So really just emphasizing the culture of vintage and secondhand garments. Thirdly, there is the recycle. So this is, mostly emphasizing the textile recycling and circular fashion. So textile recycling involves the collection and processing of old clothing and textiles to, create new products or materials. This can include shredding, for example, old clothing to make new fabrics, or maybe repurposing textiles into different products, which was something that I mentioned earlier. And circular fashion is, promoting a circular economy in which products are, designed already for recycling. So the designer and the company should keep recycling in mind. Okay, so for ethical and transparent practices, this point really stresses fair wages and transparency. So fair wages is basically ensuring that workers that are involved in the fashion supply chain are really paid fair wages for their labor. And, ethical practices are also encompassing, safe working conditions, reasonable working hours, and respect, for labor rights. And transparency, so brands are committed to ethical practices and to be transparent about their supply chain. This includes, how really, the consumer should know how their products are made. And this can ensure, a more responsible consumer choice. So transparency really allows the consumer to, to make informed decisions, and encourages the brands to really be accountable for their actions. And finally, this there is sustainable materials, which stresses the point about having eco-friendly fabrics, eco-friendly dyes, and vegan leathers. So eco-friendly fabrics refers to, using materials that have a lower environmental impact, such as organic cotton, hemp, bamboo as well, which I haven't mentioned earlier, and recycled textiles. Eco-friendly dyes is, utilizing natural or low impact dyes that really minimize the chemical pollution that is associated with, the traditional dyeing processes, which is really bad for the environment. And vegan leather, which is really substituting animal-derived leather with cruelty-free and eco-friendly alternatives. We've seen a lot of the faux fur, trend that has really taken a big space in the industry, which is a good point. And okay, so that is it for sustainable principles. And now we will be talking about how the companies in the industry are operating, and how they are really making everything happen. So many companies today are operating in the sustainable fashion sector, luckily, by adopting various strategies and practices to minimize their environmental and social impact. So first of all, it is about sustainable materials, especially in eco-friendly fabrics and innovative materials. For example, the innovative materials, I find this very interesting, is, you know, exploring materials that are lab grown. For example, for leather, the mushroom leather, algae-based textiles that are good alternatives to, traditional materials like animal leather and synthetic fabrics, which are awful for microplastics. Second, as I mentioned, ethical and transparent practices by, for example, having to obtaining fair trade certifications. This ensures that their products are produced under fair labor conditions and that workers really receive fair wages. And then the point about transparency. So brands are becoming more transparent about their supply chains, the manufacturing processes, the labor practices, and this really allows consumer to make informed choices at the end of the day. And also very interesting is that some companies even provide supply chain traceability through blockchain technology. So technology is also very helpful, for this sector, of course. Then we have sustainable production and design. So this refers to zero waste design and really local and small batch productions. So zero waste design, designers are really embracing the zero waste and the minimal waste design techniques. So this reduces the fabric waste during the whole manufacturing process. And the local and small batch production is a point that, brands are increasingly moving away, from the big mass production and are really adopting, local manufacturing. And this, of course, has an impact on, carbon emission production, which is, of course, associated with long distance transportation. Then we have recycling initiatives and take back programs. So recycling initiatives, companies encourage, customers to recycle their old clothing by providing collection programs and, recycling facilities. This helps the companies to turn the used textiles into new products. And the take back programs are also very interesting because some brands are offering, take back programs where customers can return their old items for repair or like refurbishment and recycling. So the packaging wastage is mostly, a lot of brands, as you may have seen, are investing in eco-friendly packaging. So brands are adopting sustainable packaging materials like recycled cardboards, biodegradable plastics, and materials in general, and the minimalist packaging. So this is they're basically having the consumers believe that minimalist packaging is actually fashionable, and this is very helpful for the environment and its impact. And finally, so yeah, these last 2 points for consumer education, I would say, that brands are really engaging in education and awareness campaigns through, content, labels, social media campaigns, and these can inform the customers about, environmental and social implication of their purchases. And finally, operational eco-friendly initiatives, which are, including, of course, the energy efficiency, water conservation, and reducing waste. So energy efficiency, some fashion companies are, focusing on reducing energy consumption in their production processes and also in the retail operations. This is very important because, the fashion industry does not just, include the production processes, but it is also about the retail operations. So how many stores they have, and how energy efficient they are within their facilities altogether. Then there's water conservation, as I mentioned earlier. So implementing water saving technologies and practices within the manufacturing processes is important, especially with dyeing activities and the finishing. And finally, reducing waste. So again, efforts to really minimize the waste during the production, such as using cutting edge technology for pattern and for minimal leftover fabric. Okay, so now from the sell side, we go to the consumers. So what is the role of the consumer is, of course, to be an informed shopper. So informed shopping is really crucial when it comes to making, sustainable fashion choices. It empowers consumers to make a more responsible decision and understand the impact of their choices on on the environment and overall on the society. So some reasons on why it is extremely important to be an informed shopper is of course the environmental impact, and it is important that the consumer really understands that the footprint ultimately is shared and is bared both by the producer but also the consumer. So if you're buying something that is not environmentally sustainable, you're also bearing the burden of being of contributing to the pollution. And the same is for ethical considerations. So, the informed shoppers can support brands and products that adhere, to ethical labor practices, and, that workers are really paid their fair wages, and that children are not put there to, to work. Then again, this point is very important within this sector, which is quality over quantity. So informed shoppers will prioritize quality over quantity. So quality means durability, and it really reduces the need for the frequent replacements that uninformed shoppers are doing all the time. And then there is consumer influence. So informed shoppers send a message to the fashion industry by demanding sustainable and ethical products. So this is really an it's a push that goes it's two-sided. So there is the producer that encourages and creates awareness campaigns for the customers, but it's also the consumer that can, really through its consuming choices, but also, through these messages and the constant contact that we are able to have through social media today, is to really encourage our brands to be more sustainable. So finally, I wanted to give you some statistics, which I think it's very important to see the effect and how for instance H&M has a conscious collection. I know it's very it's been targeted many times as a very irresponsible brand, but I think so. As I think it was the case, but through its conscious collection and other initiatives that it's implementing, I think that it's very good to shift away from that fast fashion model. So hopefully it can, grow from here. So sustainable fashion initiatives have, demonstrated their potential to really make a significant difference in the industry. So some success stories I want to share with you today, with some, numbers. So H&M has, as I mentioned before, a conscious collection. So H&M, as you know, is a global fast fashion retailer. And it has launched just now this conscious collection, actually I think it was 2010, and it is featuring mostly eco-friendly materials and sustainable practices. So this initiative really demonstrates that even these large-scaled companies can adopt a more responsible practice. They can start doing it and they can improve as technology and time allows us. So as of 2020, so here's the statistic for you, H&M has sourced 57% of its materials from sustainable or recycled sources, which is really a big increase from the previous years. You can check more statistics to compare it to the previous years on H&M Group. Then there is Patagonia. So they are more sustainable. So they started off more sustainable. So they have this worn wear program, and Patagonia is, an outdoor clothing company. It introduced its worn wear program, encouraging really customers to buy and sell used Patagonia products. This initiative really extends the life of their products, and it promotes a culture of, reusing and recycling. And also for Patagonia, as of 2020, the worn wear program has repaired almost, I think it was 178,000 garments, more or less, and they kept more than 5,000 pounds of clothing out of landfills, and that is really a big achievement. Also, in general, there is a rise of sustainable brands. I can mention a few. You can see the logos here in the presentation: Eileen Fisher, Everlane, Reformation. These the surge of these really sustainable brands demonstrates a shift of the consumer preferences towards more ethical and eco-friendly options. And also McKinsey, according to a 2020 report, it has shown that sustainable fashion brands have really increased by 75% over the past 2 years. So this is a good trend. Then there is, other brands like Levi that have, implemented initiatives like secondhand. So these are embracing, circular fashion by offering pre-owned denim and repaired services. So the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is Make Fashion Circular initiative, has estimated that transitioning to a circular fashion system could drastically reduce carbon emissions from the fashion industry by approximately 70% by 2030. That's the target here. Then I would stress the point about the sustainable materials and innovations. Innovations in sustainable materials like mushroom leather, as I mentioned before, also pineapple leather. There is a material called Pinatex. And labor-grown diamonds are also revolutionizing the fashion industry, and this offers, of course, a more eco-friendly alternative to the traditional materials, which entail, land use, exploitation of land, exploitation of people. And by 2021, the market for lab-grown diamonds used in sustainable jewelry and fashion has reached like approximately 100 million, with expectation of growth and of growing. So finally, I would stress the point about reduced water usage, which is really important. So some brands like Levi's and also Adidas, I believe, has done that, have adopted water saving technologies and practices in their production processes. So significantly reducing the environmental impact of their products. So Levi has successfully reduced water usage in its finishing processes by up to like 90% for some products, which demonstrates, the feasibility of really reducing water consumption in denim production, which is, very water intensive. So hopefully these success stories and numbers can demonstrate the positive impact, and of course the improvement that can start from here with sustainable fashion initiatives, and especially in reducing waste, extending the life of clothing, and really promoting friendly materials and spurring innovations. So the fashion industry hopefully is evolving towards a more responsible and ethical practice, and is driven by like a growing demand for more sustainable options. And this of course creates a more aware consumers. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and that it can be helpful for you. And I hope you can join the sector, as it is really interesting, and it is in search of young minds. So thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, as I mentioned earlier, you can ask for my email address to your professor, and you can write to me anytime. Thank you very much.